Fast and Furious. And here we go.
It had. And Nicole Simpson's dress.
K47 is actually the known standard from the Boone County.
So K47 is incorrect.
No, that would be correct.
All right, counsel. Mrs. Robertson advises me that Mr. Schulberg is on the phone and is advising the court through Mrs. Robertson that there is some confusion as to the numbering and which photos he has and does not have. We're going to take a brief recess. I'm going to ask counsel to consult with Mr. Schulberg, get an inventory of what he had, what he didn't have, and let's get this clear. All right.
Who the hell is Mr. Schulberg? Do we know him? Was I sleeping through that part? Mr. Schulberg. Is he the guy from the FBI? I don't know. I'm making things up now.
He called because he was concerned about why photographs were being used at all. He thought there was confusion about photographs. But there is one other problem here, which Mr. Morton pointed out.
Defense, obviously.
They're calling K47 is actually a known fiber from what has previously been called Q47. That K47 on the FBI reports is in fact a standard from Colin Yamauchi. So it's actually mislabeled there. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, counsel's correct. It should read Q47 parentheses known. That's our fault.
Right.
That's why I was explaining to the court yesterday. You know, the labeling was not completed on these until yesterday afternoon, and on some, Jonathan informed me this board has not been corrected yet. As you can see, there are patches on them. We had to relabel a lot of things because they were incorrect because there were so many items, which is what was a delay in getting this to the court. So that will be relabeled if we're permitted to use.
So then it's the K17 and K47 though that we did not have, which they call. I'm sorry. Well, we knew it as Q47. Okay.
You know it is Q, but you have the photograph. All right, Mr. Escobar, next matter, next board.
I can't answer that question based on what I know. Mr. Morton and I step up again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, he was given photographs of K14. He was not given the photographs of K9. And then on the... Right. We have the two Q3Cs on the left and right side, Your Honor, but not the electron microscopic photograph in the middle. That we never received. So in other words, neither of those electron microscopic photographs, K9 or the one that's Q3C in the middle, were ever disclosed. Your Honor, Mr. Morton's also brought to my attention that the Q47 fiber we had is the fiber from the knit cap listed here, not what's listed as K47 on the previous board, which is really a known from a Q47. So we hadn't those photographs either. This is the only Q47 we did have.
All right, you don't have Q3C and K9.
We have the Q3C on the far left, but not the Q3C in the middle, which is the electron microscopic photograph of Q3C. On this board, they're both labeled Q3C.
Got it. All right, this is the bluish-black cotton fiber associations.
Not have Q3D. Q23. We do not have Q27.
Okay. All right, this is known cotton fiber from Ronald Goldman jeans. Question, cotton fibers from Ronald Goldman's shirt.
We have Q23. We do not have K19.
All right, thank you, Mr. Escobar.
We don't have Q3A. Yeah, Mr. Morton believes he didn't actually see this one either because it was being photographed. We don't have Q3A, no Q21.
All right, thank you, Mr. Escobar. Briefly.
Very good. Of the photographs on the boards, the ones that they complain of not having are all accompanied by photographs they do have and have had since September of '94. Q1 is on the same board as other photographs, questioned hairs that were photographed that they did have. Q8C is on, again, same thing, on the same board as photographs of hairs that they did get. Same thing for Qs 10, 13, 18, and 47, on the same board with photographs that they did get. Q8B2 and Q7C, same issue, on the same board as photographs that they do have. With respect to the blue-black cotton fiber that we heard so much screaming about yesterday, in fact, they did have a photograph of that. Q23, they have photographs of Q23, which is on the board with other
No!
which is photographs they do have on the
They
same board
had
with
a
photographs they
photograph
cannot
of
have.
it.
The issue here is that the defense clearly knew as of September of '94 that photographs of the microscopic comparisons were taken. They had them in their possession and have had for, what is this now, 10 months? So they were on notice that such photographs were taken. We decided to present them on the form of boards and presented them to them the day before. And now we hear there are some photographs that they do not have. They've had the opportunity to examine them. They've had the opportunity to photograph them. There is nothing else that could be done to provide them with discovery and time to examine it. But the bottom line here is that they were on notice that these photographs existed. And if they were concerned that they wanted to provide their own photographs, they certainly have had ample time to create them and access, having had the evidence in their hands for at least 3 occasions, on 3 separate times, with all of their experts. And knowing that photographs had been taken by our experts, what stopped them from taking their own photographs? And how can they complain that there were some photographs that they didn't see that are on boards with photographs that they did see? All right, now you've seen them. You've had a day to absorb it.
You were just making some observations
That's
regarding
it.
the associations.
Anyway, that's it.
All right, thank you.
I did want to point that out, but let me say this, Your Honor. To preclude evidence that is important to the proof of the elements of the crime would unfairly punish not just the victims, but the people of the state of California. And I do point out to the court the families of Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. To preclude that kind of evidence in a case, and it is important evidence, Your Honor, not willfully withheld, not knowingly withheld, and the court knows that, and even the defense knows that. It has been turned over as soon as we found out about it. It penalizes the wrong party. If the court feels that we have been remiss, then I would urge the court to penalize us personally, or myself personally. But please don't penalize the proof of the case.
Your Honor, with regard to that last remarks of counsel, the district attorney's offices are the representatives of the people, as we all understand. They're representing the people. They're representing the victims. They're representing everybody. They represent OJ. They represent the innocent as well as the guilty. That's what justice is all about. And when they do something in this case, as they've done, they have to be held accountable. It's fine to make that kind of a speech, and the court's going to have to weigh that. When Your Honor recited what you would do in this case. You were mindful that would apply. You weren't just saying that applied to the defense. It applied to both sides. So we can't carve out an exception for the people just because they want to say, well, we messed up and we don't want this to neuter the detriment of our case. When a lawyer makes a calculated decision and they are caught in that decision, they're held responsible for that, and their case does suffer whatever. Because you see, it's not just the people. It's the jury. It's everything. It's justice. It's the defendant and his right to a fair trial. And the only thing I wanted to say in response to what she indicated, you've listened to us enough, is that we, based upon the errors we've seen on this board, we want an opportunity to look at the microscopic slides in addition to these photographs. I mean, it's not, we're not going to take their word for those things, Your Honor. I think you can see there are enough errors here that there are problems with regard to this, and we just can't accept their word for what's happened. And we tried to point that out in the course of our remarks. And so you've heard it, and I'll submit it, and I've expressed to you how we feel about this.
All right, thank you, counsel.
And I don't want you to be misled. The errors are ours on the labeling, not Mr. Dieter's.
I understand that. All right, the court has before it two particular issues: the late disclosure of photographs that the prosecution hopes to offer before the jury. The court also has before it the content of a report regarding investigation into the source of the carpet in the Bronco automobile, which speaks to the relative rarity of that particular carpet, that particular formulation and color and date of manufacture. I'll address the photographs first. The court will overrule the objection to the photographs for the following reason. The defense has had access to most of the photographs. None of the photographs that are in dispute depict items that other photographs of which do not similarly exist. The defendant also had access on at least 3 occasions to each piece of the physical evidence that the photographs depict. So the objection on that basis will be overruled. The objection to the content of the report prepared by Mr. Diedrich regarding the source and rarity of the carpet fiber, that objection will be sustained. The prosecution will be precluded from presenting any evidence that is contained in the report. All right, let's have the jury.
One clarification on it. With respect to Agent Diedrich's conclusion that the Bronco fibers are consistent, which was contained in his report, that much is admissible?
That is admissible.
All right.
For those questions posed, the counsel approached the bench so we don't have a misunderstanding on that. When we get to that point, I'm a little concerned about. So there's clarity. We've got some.
Trust me, all of our antennas will be up when we get to that.
And I would think so. Your Honor, there's one other thing we would like to bring up.
Sit down. Sit down.
We hope so, Your Honor. But, Your Honor, with regard to, would the court entertain our proposed
No.
jury instruction with regard to this delay and what's
Nope.
happened the last
No.
half day or so as you've done
Sit
in the
down.
past? Professor Ullman is here, and rather than take the time now, we'd like to be able to proffer something to you as to what occasioned this delay and what's happened for the last
Well,
half day.
would have been nice if you had asked before I invited the jury to regard
Oh,
this.
no, well, no,
I got good news for you guys. I have very good news for you guys. I'm about to go take my daughter to work. So, you don't have to hear me yelling at him. I'm going to have my phone listening, and I'm just going to scream and yell at him in my car. My poor daughter gets to listen, but she can drive herself if she doesn't like it. But you guys enjoy. I'll be back. I'll be back very soon. So yesterday I made breakfast and coffee. When I got home, listening on my phone, that's why it took me so long yesterday. Ah, sugar, I think I need to get gas. I have to get gas on the way home. And then I'll be here. Baby, if I can make it, then I'm not going to get gas. I'll save that for tomorrow. I'll be back, guys.
Well, let me just suggest this to you. I had to hear what Your Honor's ruling was going to be first, and I'm not. Professor Ullman's here, and we want to get this case underway. What I was going to suggest to you is that if we drop something, will your court entertain it, or we can do it real fast right now? I think it's appropriate.
You can submit it to me. I want to start with the jury, though.
Sure, no, that's fine. I'm not asking you not to start with
I'll
the jury.
consider it, is what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do that and get it to you as soon as possible.
Let's have the jurors, please. Let the record reflect we have finally been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel this morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you recollect, yesterday we ended a little early because there were several things that I needed to take up with the lawyers, and we spent a long time yesterday, and it spent a long time again this morning. I apologize to you for that. Unfortunately, these things happened during the course of a hard-fought trial. All right, Ms. Clark, people may call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. People call Mr. Douglas Diedrich.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the trial counsel before this court should be the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in the witness stand and state your first and last name for the record.
My name is Douglas W. Diedrich. Diedrich is spelled D-E-E-D-R-I-C-K.
Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Diedrich, can you tell us where you're employed?
I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm currently assigned to the FBI laboratory in Washington, D.C.
And how long have you been with the FBI, sir?
Well, I've been with the FBI for 23 years, and I've been working in the laboratory now for a little over 17.
What is your current assignment?
Currently, I'm the unit chief in the hairs and fibers unit of the scientific analysis section. I've been the unit chief for approximately 2 years.
What are your duties as unit chief?
Well, as unit chief, I'm responsible for supervising other special agent examiners, support examiners, and physical science technicians. I review reports that they compile. I provide protocols and information regarding the operations of the unit. I supervise various programs that are undergoing in the unit, such as skeletal remains. We have a DNA program that we're currently researching, and other matters that deal with evidence submission and evidence examination.
Approximately how many employees do you supervise, sir?
I supervise about 20 employees.
Are they all hair and trace examiners?
Yes, they are.
And what is your education?
I came into the FBI in 1972 with a bachelor's degree in biology from Indiana University.
Can you tell the jury what you've done with the FBI over the past 23 years?
Well, in 1972, I hired on with the FBI as a clerical employee, and I was a file clerk. I gave tours at FBI headquarters for several years, and then I went into new agents class in 1976. After completing new agents training, I was assigned to New York City as my first office, where I was involved in fugitive investigations and other matters. In late 1977, I was reassigned to the laboratory division into the hairs and fibers unit, where I had 1 year of training, and after that time became an examiner. Since that time, I've primarily been an examiner in the unit.
And you continue to examine as part of your duties?
I do.
And by examine, we mean hair and trace submitted to you in various cases?
We get evidence submitted to the FBI laboratory from local and state law enforcement agencies around the country and around the world. We also do support work for FBI field operations, such as investigating bank robberies or kidnappings, hijackings, extortions, a number of investigations that we're responsible for as a law enforcement agency. We may conduct examinations in those cases.
So it sounds like all kinds of cases.
Well, there are a number of violations, federal violations, that we may get involved with, and from the standpoint of local and state, most of our work deals with homicide investigations, sexual assaults, aggravated assaults, and other matters that are primarily the concern of local and state law enforcement.
So you're testifying in this case, it's a local case, right? This is not a federal case, is it? It's a state case.
It's a state case, right?
Is it unusual for you to be testifying in a state case for a local agency?
No, probably most of my testimonies have been in state court.
Now, approximately how many cases have you examined in the lab?
Well, I've examined probably 4,000 cases since 1978. That's about when I finished my training. I've testified in maybe 400 of those cases. So about 10% of the cases that I work involve some form of testimony.
And in those 400 cases in which you have testified, have you qualified as an expert in the field of hair and trace examination?
I have. I also do feather examinations, and I do some wood examinations too, but it's trace related.
Have you always testified for the prosecution?
No,
You have testified for the defense as well?
maybe 25 or 30 times.
Whenever they ask you to?
They request it. Sometimes the evidence that I look at exculpates or indicates in some way that the defendant in the case may not have committed the crime. And in that instance, or in those instances, I would go and testify as their witness, which I have.
Have you been involved in any training duties in the unit?
Well, as a unit chief, I kind of added on the training coordinator responsibilities, which I had already had prior to becoming unit chief. So I am responsible for making sure that the training programs implemented in the unit for all the technicians as well as the examiners are complied with and the requirements met. I also teach at the FBI Academy. I haven't taught new agents yet, but I have taught National Academy individuals, law enforcement individuals who go to the FBI Academy for a 15-week training period. I have lectured them. I have lectured in-service training for agents in the field. And also I teach Introduction to Hairs and Fibers, which is a 2-week course that we provide other law enforcement agencies and other laboratories on how to do hair and fiber examinations.
Now, do you provide technical assistance to other agencies or institutions?
I do. I have been involved with training other individuals that are interested in hair and fiber type examinations. I've trained people from the CIA, from the postal inspectors. I've worked with people from the Air Force, the Navy, NASA, Smithsonian. Quite often the Smithsonian will come up with some interesting artifact and they want some expertise on maybe hairs that are recovered or fibers that are found to determine the authenticity of a particular item. They may, and they have in the past, come over to the laboratory and I've done examinations for them.
Now, have you made any presentations at international symposiums?
I have. I've made 2 presentations in Mexico at Forensic International Symposium.
And what was that concerning?
Well, that was primarily the significance or the value of hair and fiber evidence to promote it, in a sense, to show the value of it to these investigators so that they may incorporate that type of analysis in the investigation of crimes in their areas.
Do you collaborate with other experts through forensic associations?
Yes, I have attended meetings down at the Academy. I went to the 1985 International Hair Symposium, sat on a committee there. I have attended a technical working group for fiber examinations, examiners, which is at the Academy. And it's made up of individuals from around the country who are interested in developing knowledge about fiber examinations. I've attended the European Fibers Group meeting in Sweden just recently. And again, that's working with the Europeans on the same type of work. But collaboration is part of growth and it's part of learning more about the field that we're working in.
You indicated that you are involved in some training. Is there a training committee that you're involved with?
Well, there was a training committee that was established to establish guidelines for the new examiners that are coming on board around the laboratory to make them more uniform throughout the lab, and I was designated as a member of that committee to establish those guidelines. In the past, I have been involved with committees that have essentially supervised the training and during the whole year of their training to make sure that the requirements of that unit were met, and it's sort of an outside review as opposed to an internal review.
So you designed the training program?
Well, in the unit, I designed the Hairs and Fibers training program, both for the technicians and for the new examiners.
Have you ever heard of proficiency tests?
Yes.
Do you administer those in the course of your job as unit chief to your employees?
I designed a proficiency test relating to hair and fiber examinations for all the examiners in the unit. They take 2 tests a year. I have one of the examiners make tests for me so I can maintain some proficiency. Working cases helps, but it's just a way to check. We do have a blind testing program which comes out of Quantico at the Academy, at the training division, where cases come in from field offices or other agencies. They look like a regular case. They're worked as a regular case, and then they're reviewed. They're sent back to Quantico for review to see if they were done properly, if they were done in a timely fashion, just to review the accuracy and timeliness of the case.
In that situation, then, you're being tested, but you don't know it.
You would know it. No, as an examiner, you would know it.
Well, what if you make a mistake on one of those blind tests? How do you find out?
Well, the blind test results are returned back to the unit chief for review. The unit chief will then determine if the case was done properly. I would review the notes of the case to make sure they were done. No recommendation is done at this particular time. I then return that to the training committee at Quantico, who then makes final determinations. Yeah, we are involved in external training as well. We have been taking external tests from the European Fibers Group and from other groups over the years.
By external tests, you mean?
Well, an external test is a proficiency test that is provided from outside your own group, such as the European Fibers Group over the past couple of years has sent tests out that we've worked with and sent back a response. In the past, and I can't recall how many years ago, I think the English were sending around a test, and I was asked to take the test for our unit, and I haven't heard any results on that.
What does that mean? You haven't heard any results on that? Is there any significance to that?
Sustained.
Let me ask you, sir, if you know. When you're tested, either through a blind proficiency test in which you don't know you're being tested by Quantico, or by an external test, are you notified if you've made a mistake?
You become aware of it, yes. They'll let you know. And the purpose of these tests, whether they're internal, external, or blind, is to see if anybody is having a problem. If somebody is not making the matches that they should make, if they make the proper associations or not.
Sustained.
May I lay a foundation, Your Honor?
Proceed.
So if you are notified if you make a mistake. You are made aware of that.
That's the purpose of
Overruled. Proceed.
the purpose of proficiency test, as I said.
Ask another question.
Did he answer it?
Question, are you notified, yes or no?
Yes.
He's answered the question.
And the answer was yes. Okay. Have you ever been
Yes.
notified, sir, of having made a mistake on a proficiency test?
No.
How about anybody else in your lab?
I have no record of any such mistake being brought to my attention. We've been involved in proficiency testing in the laboratory since 1986.
And since 1986, when proficiency testing began, you have not had any mistakes brought to your attention
No.
made by anyone?
No, and in the last few years, I've been grading the tests as well.
Now, okay, earlier you used a term, and I'd like to ask you about its scientific propriety. When you make an examination of hairs or fibers, and you attempt to compare them to see if they are the same or similar composition, do you ever use the term match?
Well, sure, we use the term match.
And when you use the term match, what do you mean?
Well, a match indicates that the question material and the known material exhibit the same microscopic characteristics. With textile fibers, they may also exhibit certain optical properties which are also the same. When I say match, we cannot say with absolute certainty that a fiber originated from a particular fabric. It's not possible to do that. Nor do we say that a hair that's found at a crime scene or in a proficiency test originated absolutely from that individual. Now, in a proficiency test, you know it did. Because that's the way the test is designed. You have a known sample from an individual, and you have a question hair. Now, the question hair, I know, came from that person. That's a fact. But the most an examiner can say about that hair is that hair could have come from that person if it exhibits the same microscopic characteristics. It's a fine line, but we only say could have.
Okay.
Please, according to you, that explanation, because
Your Honor, are we
match
having
has plain
speaking
English.
objections now?
Sustained, counsel. Sidebar with the court reporter. Thank you, counsel. Proceed.
All right.
We're talking
In-
about efficiency tests.
In casework examinations, what is the habit and custom in your lab concerning review by other examiners? For example, if you have a case and you draw conclusions about what you've seen in the course of your comparisons, does someone else review that as well? Do they just review your paperwork, or do they review the actual items that you compared?
Well, with regard to all hair associations, that is, when an examiner says that this hair exhibits the same microscopic characteristics as a known sample from an individual, and that's what's being reported, another examiner will take a look at that same hair association and determine whether or not it's valid. If that person signs off on it, then the report will be reported out. It will come to my desk. I review all the documentation that's done in the case, not only just the hair association, but any other work that's been done, such as if all the fiber tests have been conducted properly, if all the requested examinations have been answered, if all the items are correct, and so forth. So I'm kind of like the last stop in the laboratory for the report before it goes out.
Now, is there anyone in your unit that has as much or more experience than you do?
No.
Who next to yourself, in terms of years and experience, is there?
Well, we have two examiners that have approximately 6 or 7 years of experience, caseworking experience.
And yet, you've indicated to us that you have your casework confirmed by someone in your unit as well, correct?
Sure.
And why?
Okay, you're saying. Hold on.
And why would you do that if they don't have as much experience as you?
Well, I don't have any doubts in the abilities of any of our examiners, our qualified examiners, in their ability to properly associate hair evidence. They wouldn't be doing cases if I had any question about that. After a year of training, you get a pretty good idea as a training officer or as a unit chief as to the abilities of someone to make the proper call. Once they're qualified, they have an opportunity, as with any examiner who has any number of years of experience, to confirm or not to confirm hair associations that someone else has made. I would have them look at my work just as they would have me look at their work.
And did you do that in this case?
I did,
Someone reviewed all of your work?
yes.
How many hair comparisons have you done over the past 17 years?
Well, each case that comes in, and a case being evidence submitted in a criminal violation, may contain a lot of items. I really don't know exactly how many the average is, but 10 to 20 items of evidence submitted in a case is not unusual. That would be items from a suspect, items from the victim, items from the crime scene. So all of these items have to be processed for hairs and fibers, and you have to examine all of those. So there could be hundreds of examinations and comparisons conducted in each case. So if you multiply that out, that's a lot of hairs and fibers.
There were, you said, about 4,000 cases?
About 4,000 cases, yes.
So 4,000 times 100, 400,000 comparisons?
I would say 500,000 would be reasonable. I feel like I've examined actually a lot more than that, but 500,000 sounds all right.
And that's for hair and fiber combined?
That's both.
Okay, let's talk about the composition of hair. What do you use to examine hairs?
Well, hair examinations are conducted with a microscope, either a research microscope, a stereo binocular microscope, or a comparison microscope.
And what can you tell from the microscopic examination of hairs?
Well, the first thing that you have to determine with regards to hairs is whether it's an animal hair or human hair. And if it's an animal hair, if it's important in the case, it can be identified through reference collections, confirmed through reference material, but also the first step is just what's in your own head from your own knowledge. With human hairs, the race of the individual, the part of the body the hair came from, how it came out of the body, if it's been artificially treated, if it's been subject to some disease or some damage. And these are the first things that have to be determined on every hair that's examined under the microscope.
Okay, with regard to those first things that you look for during your examination of a hair under the microscope, you indicated how the hair was removed?
How the hair was removed. Hairs can be naturally shed. They would have a root that looks like the head of a wooden matchstick. It's kind of rounded, looks like a club shape. If it's forcibly removed, as is the case sometimes with the matters that I look at, the hair, which is firmly attached, will be pulled and it will stretch. It'll look all stretched out, and it may even have some tissue from the follicle or from the area of the skin where it's attached. That's forcible removal. If the hair has been pulled, it may also break at the skin line. It may tear. It may be cut with a dull or sharp instrument. These are things that can be determined microscopically.
Now, there are then, you're referring to these microscopic characteristics. Are there specific characteristics of hairs that you use to compare when you do your examination?
There are a number of microscopic characteristics that I look at and I consider and compare in every case.
Would it assist you in your explanation of those characteristics to the jury if you were to refer to a diagram?
That would be wonderful.
People's 459, Your Honor.
All right, People's 459.
You know what? Okay, we see before us People's 459, a diagram. Are you familiar with this diagram, sir?
I am.
How come?
I prepared it.
All right. Since you prepared it, you can explain to us what you were trying to indicate on this chart with respect to the microscopic characteristics of hairs.
Be glad to. The hair shaft is actually what you look at under a microscope first of all. Under low magnification, it shows the root area. Also diagrams out the follicle, or the area of the skin where the hair is growing, the hair shaft, and the tip of the hair. Each of these areas all have characteristics and have a particular look about them that is useful when comparing hairs between a crime scene and from an individual. Now, the enlargement beneath it shows an area of that hair that is magnified. Always keep in mind that these diagrams are two-dimensional structures, or two-dimensional pictures. You're not seeing that they're in fact cylinders. Hairs are cylindrical type objects, and this is only looking at one particular plane. The examination involves what's called optical cross-sectioning. By focusing up and down with the microscope, you actually look at all the characteristics from the bottom of the hair as it's laying on the slide to the top of the hair. Now that diagram shows that the hair has an outer layer of scales called the cuticle. Now these scales always overlap in the direction of the tip. Any abuse, damage, blow drying, being in a dry environment, all affect the way the scales will protrude away from the hair shaft. Some individuals, they lay very close. Other individuals, they're separated to a great extent. So the degree of scale protrusion is a consideration. Now, this is colored for your enjoyment, I guess. It's actually not brown. The color of the cuticle is something that would be considered. For instance, if a person treats their hair, if they dye their hair, or even if they alter the color in some way, it's possible to determine when that treatment may last have been applied by considering the length of growth of that, the length that the hair has grown since the application of the treatment. So about a half an inch a month, you get an idea how far back the treatment was applied. This may be important in a case, depending on the circumstances. Now, the cuticle can be very thick, it can be very thin. It may have a very distinct border underneath it. Other times it looks like it blends very evenly with what the underlying structure is called the cortex. Now, most of the hair is called the cortex. It's kind of like a pencil, all right? The paint on the outside of the pencil is the cuticle. All the wood, that's the cortex. And the lead portion of the pencil, that's the central structure called the medulla. Now, in the cortex, there are pigment granules. They help to give the hair color. The pigment granules can be different sizes and shapes. They could be distributed in certain ways within the hair. In black people, the pigment granules are tightly grouped and often very dense. In Asians, the hair, the cortex may be quite a bit larger. It may have a reddish coloration. In Caucasian individuals, you have a pretty good range. The distribution of the pigment is a consideration. Red-haired people, the pigment's always grouped down towards the middle, down towards the medulla. But most everybody else, it's grouped outside towards the cuticle. All right. Now, also in this cortex, you'll have little air bubbles. They're called cortical fusi, it's a scientific term, but they're just little air bubbles. And these little bubbles can appear in different sizes and shapes and different places of that hair. It would be something to look at and consider when you're comparing a question hair with a known hair. Now, sometimes a pigment is found in large groups, and it looks like a solid structure, and it's called an ovoid body. Now, some people have a lot of these. They may be all black. Some people have amber-colored ovoid bodies. They could look like little footballs inside the hair shaft. Or they may look like circular structures. It just depends on the individual. If they're there, how many of them, where they're at, it might be something that is characteristic of that person's hair. Now, in the center of the hair is called the medulla. It may or may not be present. In head hairs, sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. With Asian individuals, the medulla is often very thick and continuous. If it looks black under the microscope, and I believe in this diagram it looks black, that's because there's air surrounding that area of the hair, and the light from the microscope won't get through it. So it may look black. Sometimes there is no air. It'll look clear. It just looks like a clear river running down the middle of the hair. Now, it may be continuous. It may be broken. It may be in large lengths, or it may be in small groups, and there just would be trace, a consideration of the appearance of that medullary structure. That's about what hairs look like.
Well, based on what you're saying then, sir, these characteristics of the cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla are vary between individuals.
Well, yes, they are. Yes.
Would you be able to draw for us some of the ways in which you've seen it vary?
I'd be happy to.
We could do this here so that the council can see what's being drawn at the same time. Right. Well, we need to get as many people at one time to see this. All right, 165, can you see that? Yes, sir. All right, thank you. Proceed.
What color would you like?
Well, black is fine.
There's also a thinner one here.
Ms. Parker, would you like Mr. Diedrich to draw?
What would you like to draw first?
Would you like me to step down and draw for you, please?
Yes, I would like for you to sit down. Thank you.
Now, we talked about the diagram. I'll just kind of redo this a little bit for you here, just so we can fill in the blanks. That's that magnified area of the hair shaft. The cuticle is the outer structure. Again, consider this to be a cylinder or three-dimensional structure. The scale protrusion may be great, or it may lay very flat. You might not even be able to see where the edges of the scales lie. Again, the color, the thickness of the cuticle. The pigment granules appear to be dots inside the cortex of the hair. Now, with gray-haired individuals, you won't see them. If a person bleaches their hair, you'll see them. They'll just be light. Pigment granules can be in groups. They help to define the racial group. Clumping of pigment into groups within the hair shaft is characteristic of black individuals. But not all black individuals have heavy clumping of pigment. Some do, some don't. When I speak of microscopic characteristics, we go from models. Always go from a model. We have a model for the Caucasian. We have a model for black individuals. We have a model for Asians. But they don't always follow the model. Now, however far they go away from the model, that makes it a little more difficult determining race.
And sir, why do you determine race? What's the point of that?
Well, race is determined primarily for investigative purposes. That's the first stage. You may have a hair that's recovered on an item of evidence in a case, and they want to know who may have committed the crime. From an examination of the hair, some direction may be given to the investigator by the lab examiner. Might help them in determining who they should be looking for, perhaps. The bottom line in our work is comparison. You may be a little off in saying the exact racial group, or maybe.
Well, I was going to ask you about limb hairs. Let me ask you that later. Right now, can you please tell us, sir, how you conduct an examination of hairs?
Well, back again a little bit here. The first thing I do, once the hairs are prepared on glass microscope slides, is to examine the hair to determine animal, human, racial origin, and part of the body it came from. I do that with all the question items. The question items may be from the clothing of the victim, and it may be several items, and they're all mounted on separate slides. The clothing of the suspect, again, they're mounted on separate slides. I go through, starting at Q1, question item number 1, and I move through the case, getting an idea as to what kind of hairs I'm seeing on the victim's clothes, what kind of hairs I'm seeing on the suspect's clothes. I then go to the known hairs, I examine the knowns, describe them in note form, but the notes are taken just for me to make sure that I look at everything and also to highlight some of the characteristics that are being seen. And ultimately, take the question hairs using a comparison microscope and comparing them with that instrument.
All right, would you please describe the process by which hairs and fibers are mounted on slides?
Sure. The hairs and fibers that are recovered from the clothing of an individual are often retained in either paper folds or in plastic pill boxes or however. Let's say a pill box is taken to a stereo microscope and then examined carefully to see if there's anything in it. Are there hairs in it? Are there fibers in it? What else do I see? And then those hairs are removed individually. Now, before you start even working on this, that whole area is cleaned off and you make sure that there's nothing on it that's going to be added to your case. A clean glass microscope slide is placed down on some clean paper. The hairs are then removed individually and mounted on that slide. First thing I do is I place a thin film of a solvent called xylene, and it allows the hairs to stick to it.
May I interrupt you, sir? We have photographs. Would you like to narrate the photographs so the jury can see the process?
That would be fine.
Can I ask that this series of photographs be marked collectively as People's 461, Your Honor? With,
Yes.
and this would be A?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you please tell the jury what we see in 461A?
Well, we see an examiner that used to have dark brown hair, but he's
Is that you?
changed a little bit. Yeah, hairs do change a little bit. But what I'm doing here is looking through the stereo microscope and looking at a pill box that contains hairs and fibers that may have been collected from a particular item of evidence. The stereo binocular microscope allows me to look at the material from a three-dimensional look. The mechanics of it, or the optics, are set up in such a way that you're looking at it three-dimensionally, so you can focus up and down and see what's underneath things.
Okay. Can you tell us what's being done in this picture? 461B, Your Honor?
Right here, you see the examiner removing a hair from the pill box in preparation for placing it on the glass microscope slide. Each hair would be measured. I mean, there's a ruler generally laid down for the purposes of determining the length of the hair before it's mounted on the slide.
Now, you're using a pill box there to contain the hair and fiber that you recover from evidence. Have you ever heard of people using paper bindles to contain hair and fiber collected from evidence?
Well, I never heard the word bindle until I got to this case, but we've always heard them as druggist folds or paper folds. So if you want me to call them a bindle, I'll call them a bindle.
You don't have to call them.
Okay.
You can call them paper folds. You've seen that before,
I've
have you?
seen it come all kinds of ways.
Is there anything wrong with collecting the hair and fiber that is recovered from evidence into a paper fold instead of a pill box?
No, I think it's just easier to work with a pill box from an examiner's standpoint because you can actually see what's in it. But paper folds are fine.
And paper folds are what you received from Susan Brockbank of LAPD in this case.
I did, yes.
Please tell us what we're seeing here in 461C.
Okay, I've already mentioned that once you take the hair out of the pill box, you place it on the slide with some forceps.
Do you ever do that with your hands?
You can use your hands, sure. Yeah, you may have to hang on to the end of the hair when you're measuring it. You just hold one end and hold the other with the forceps, or you can use two forceps. You always have to be careful with forceps because you can pinch the hair, you can break the hair. It's kind of a little delicate operation. But yeah, you can use your hands. As long as your hands are clean, that's not a problem.
And in this photograph, sir? 461D?
Okay, once the hair has been positioned on the glass slide, now this glass slide is like 1 inch by 3 inches, and on one end there's an area that you can write on it as to what you're putting on this slide. You place the hair on it, you blot out the excess solvent with some blotter paper, and you place a few drops of permount, which is a mounting media. It's like glue. It's a yellowish substance. You don't really see the color microscopically, but it's placed 3 or 4 drops on the slide, and then you lay the cover slip down on top of that.
Now, the xylene that you mentioned before, a solvent, is that the process being shown in this photograph, 461E?
Right, this would have been the step just prior to putting on the permount. Right.
Why is it used? Why do you do this?
Well, it's just used for, well, for one thing, it blends with permount. It mixes with it. You couldn't use water. You would have to use something that would mix with the glue-type substance you're using. So you actually just to hold the material in place. If you're working with fibers, You can't put a fiber down on a clean, just dry glass, because the slightest air movement could move that fiber off the slide. So you just use it to stick things on the slide while you're taking material out of your paper fold or your plastic pillbox or from a hatchet or whatever you're taking it off of, just so you don't lose it.
Does either the solvent xylene or permount affect the hair or fiber in any way in terms of its appearance? Does it alter or damage it?
No, it just allows you to see it better.
Let me ask you about that. If you were to examine a hair or fiber mounted on a slide with water instead of permount, would that be a good or bad thing?
I wouldn't do it.
And why is
I wouldn't
that?
recommend it either. Well, because there's too much contrast. If the hair or the fiber, these other materials have properties that are not very clearly visible when you use water. And you could use some other materials too, but if the properties of that liquid are such that it's quite a bit different than what the item you're looking at is, you'll have a large amount of contrast, and you won't be able to see actually inside the characteristics of that material.
Might the use of a water mount also inhibit or affect your ability to determine how many hairs you have on a slide?
Well, very easily, especially when you're using cover slips, and that material could move very quickly over to the edge, and you would be near the edge of the cover slip. You wouldn't even know it was there because there'd be so much contrast. But even if a hair might be laying right next to another hair or on top of it, it may even look like an extension of the hair. You really couldn't even see that, whether there was one hair or two hairs or however many.
Prior to beginning your mounting process, sir, do you make any effort to determine how long or how short the hairs are that you're going to mount?
Yes, I have that ruler down there, and
Can someone tell me if they showed pictures? Hi guys. Did they show pictures when he was talking about the different things with the hair? Were we able to see the pictures? Not did they show him pictures? Obviously, they're looking at pictures. I want to know if we were able to see it, because it was very interesting, and I want to see it if I'm able to see it. If not, I'm not going back because I already heard it all.
I measure the hair and put it on a slide and make a notation. Most of the slides that are prepared, I make a note of the longest hair that I place on the slide. Sometimes at a later date, this is may not work out so well, because the hair that you find that looks like the individual known standard may be shorter than that measurement that you have. You might say under 6 inches or so on the slide, and the hair that you're looking at is 2 inches. And you have to go back with some thread and try to figure it out, and it works out pretty well. But you can take the slide apart at any time. Well, maybe not any time, but at least during the time you're working with it, because it is still workable. It doesn't set like glue real hard, real fast. You may have trouble like 10 years from now.
Because by then it will be set.
Well, it gets set, right, after about 10 years. It's semi-permanent
So the
initially.
slides that you create will permit the examination and re-examination of the hairs and fibers that were mounted for quite a long time to come.
Sure, and often during the examination, material may have to be removed from that slide so that I may make a crack in the cover slip. Cover slip is just a very, very thin sheet of glass that fits on top of the slide just to hold it in place. And a little tap with the scribe allows a crack to form, and then you can remove carefully the material that you want without disturbing the rest of the slide.
But you would be able to tell then that the cover slip was cracked.
You couldn't miss that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break for the noon hour. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you, or allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand in recess until 1 p.m. All right, Mr. Diedrich, you're ordered to come back 1 p.m. All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. All parties are again present. Anything we need to take up before we invite the jurors to join us? Mr. Cochran?
Your Honor, we were not on the record, but at sidebar, we had an indication from the people regarding their list of witnesses to the end of their case, and I'd like to do that on the record if we could at this point, what Ms. Clark told us with regard to not having further witnesses except for Ms. Brown. So we can just make it clear so we know where we're going to go.
Ms. Clark?
That's correct.
All right,
What?
Mrs. Brown.
Yes.
Possible last witness. And
What? That's crazy, guys. Oh my goodness gracious. It is June 29th, part 2 right now. What time is it? Wait, I'm looking. We've been going at it for 1 hour. We are going to make it to the end of this video today. We are going to make it to June 29th, part 3. But this guy is still on the stand for a bit more. wait. This was premature celebration, right, Josh? He's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see a minimum of 6 videos with him still on the stand. So. But whoa, oh, yes.
Indicated there's a possibility that there may be a stipulation if she's interested in that. The other thing, Your Honor, I want to show Ms. Clark something and then just address one of the issues. Point out was just a couple things to Ms. Clark I was showing her. In some photographs we have from them. You remember the issue we talked about yesterday about the photograph of Mr. Simpson that was gone aboard? And I'm not usually one to belabor issues, but in their very photographs, Your Honor. Why are you looking up, Your Honor, like that? I don't understand
Well,
that.
that was a rolling of the eyes.
The rolling of the eyes. I don't know what that meant. Your Honor, with regard to this, there is a photograph that they wanted to show. There's a photograph right next to it in the book. And I'd like for you to see these two photographs. And it seems to me if they want to be fair, they'd show this photograph in my left hand as opposed to this. They took the one where he looks the worst, and they're taken at the same time. But one is has a scowl or whatever. It just seems to me fundamental fairness would require them to choose one at least to be fair. And that's the thing we're talking about. So would you mind looking at these two and see if the point is not well taken? I showed it to Ms. Clark, and she indicated she hadn't seen the other. It's from our book, so I wanted to.
All right, I'll take a look at it.
The boards are done, Your Honor. It's all been completed now. I would point out also that, we had a choice between a serious picture, a Ronald Goldman serious picture, and one in which he was smiling, and also selected the more serious picture in his case. But I didn't know there was another booking photograph. But the board is complete, and
When do you anticipate getting to that?
depends on how long.
Well, we're going to go straight through till 3 o'clock. Do you anticipate getting to this before then?
No.
Okay, let's proceed. Let's have the jurors. Please be seated. All right, Mr. Duke, will you resume the witness stand, please? All right, good afternoon, Mr. Dietrich.
Good afternoon.
You're reminded, sir, you are still under oath, and Ms. Clark, you may continue with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Okay, when we last left off, you had indicated you had finished telling us about how you mount the hairs and fibers on slides.
All right.
And after you complete the mounting of the hairs and fibers, what do you do with the completed slides?
Well, the slides are placed individually on a slide holder in numerical order. From that position, they're taken to a research microscope for examination under low magnification, and then through the whole process.
Now, do you change paper between the preparation of each slide?
Yes.
And were all of these slides prepared in the manner you've described in this case?
They were.
Did you mount all of the hairs and fibers that were found in the paper folds on slides?
I did not.
And why is that?
Well, some of the hairs that were found or fibers that were found were consistent
So,
with
Zach.
others that I had mounted from the same material, such as from...
It's been a while since I had to do this. The last time I had to do this was when my children were first born, especially my firstborn. When my firstborn was days old, no, the day she was born, the day I got out of the hospital, like my whole driving behavior as a human being instantly changed. I used to be a fast driver. Like I had a Mustang with a V8 and it was loud and I stepped on the gas and I drove fast everywhere I went. Without even thinking, I would be 45 down a city street. And it was loud and I didn't think about no one but myself. and you know how I loved driving and how much fun it was, and I think about nothing. And the day my daughter was born, not even when I was pregnant. I mean, I was careful when I was pregnant, but it was different. But it was like a switch, and since then, you know, I drive sometimes a little fast, but not like back then. But in my head, the whole time I'm driving, especially when she was first born, is I have to get home. I cannot get in a car accident and die. I have to get home to my baby. My baby needs me not to get into a car accident. Well, it's like that again now. When I drive to take Tiffany to work and my live stream is running, I'm like, slow down. I have to get back to my live stream. Do you know how horrific that would be if I left a live stream running and then I got into a car accident and passed away? And you guys were just watching OJ for 7 hours? Like, where's Kathy? Oh, she's never coming back. So when I'm driving, especially when I'm pulling out of like grain of water, when I'm pulling out of something and I have to cross 2 lanes, I'm like thinking of you guys. I'm like, okay, just take your time. You don't have to pull out right away. You don't have to fit into a tiny space. Take your time and wait. When I'm driving down the road, I think, okay, do not get in a car accident. Look way down the road. What's going on? What's happening? I do that every morning now, just to make sure I'm very safe.
From the gloves, there were some fibers, animal fibers that were present. I didn't mount those. Sometimes representative samples are prepared from material.
Nevertheless, are all of those fibers and hairs maintained, whether they're on slides or not?
Right. They're either on the slides or they're in the original folded paper.
And so if anyone wants to re-examine them in the future, they can do so, whether in slides or paper.
Yes, they could.
Okay, who mounted the questioned hairs in this case?
I did.
And were the known standards, that is the samples taken from people's heads and from various cloths, were they mounted using the same procedure you just described?
They were.
And who did the mounting?
Well,
of the knowns?
Well, the original known set of hairs was prepared by Susan Brockbank of the Los Angeles
Who
Police
did the
Department Crime
mounting?
Laboratory. All the other known samples that I received later, I prepared.
Okay, and so then when you say the original known samples, who are you referring to?
That would have been from the defendant and also from the 2 victims.
Rama Goldman and Nicole Brown?
That's right.
When Susan prepared those slides of their hair standards, was she in the same room with you?
She was.
Was she at the same desktop with you?
No, she was at a technician position, which is in front of my desk.
And did you observe the procedure she followed?
I did. I gave her some instruction as well as how I would like to see the slides prepared.
And did she do so according to your direction?
She initially started using her own just out of habit, and we decided that it was easier and more time-saving to do them the way that we normally do them.
Now, do you mount more than one hair or fiber on a slide?
Sure.
How many do you usually mount, either hairs or fibers on one slide?
Well, with hairs, it just depends on the racial origin, the length of the hair, the thickness of the hair, the curliness of the hair. It has a lot to do with it. There could be 5, there could be 3, there could be 15. It just depends upon the hair.
And what do you mean by that? It depends upon the hair. Do you group them?
Well, if a hair is removed from some debris and it's 20 inches long and it's from an Asian, you know it's going to be a big hair. You might only mount 1 hair on that slide because it takes up a lot of the space. You're only given a little less than 1 inch by 3 inch space to mount that material. But if you have shorter hairs that are, let's say, ½ an inch long, for instance, from a black individual or from a white individual, you might be able to prepare more. You don't want the cover slip and the per mount to be too thick. Otherwise, it's kind of like floating around in a submarine trying to figure out where these hairs are. You want it to make a pretty flat mount. So it depends on the hair.
Okay, well, at the time that Susan Brockbank was mounting the known standards on slides, what were you doing?
I was looking through the question debris, question material, and preparing slides myself.
What was the possibility of any of the known standards she was working on jumping over onto your slides on the other desk?
No, that's not a possibility. It's too much space in between, and there are no air currents to speak of in that room.
Can you describe that room a little bit?
Well, the room is about probably 15 by 15. There are 2 examiners' positions, and in front of the examiner's positions are the technician positions. So each room will have 2 examiners and 2 technicians, and there'll be microscopes at each location.
So is it common to have 2 people working on slide mounting at the same time in that room?
Could be 4 people mounting on, working on slide mounting, slide preparation.
I dropped a V8. Hold on, I'm getting there. Hold on. I dropped a V8 in this. Dual exhaust. Oh, come on. All right. It's a Mustang 2 Ghia, 1975. It was so light. Like the body and everything, super light. And then I put this Monster 302 in there. And oh my God, it was so fast. I can't even describe how fast it was. That picture makes it look real long. It was very tiny. It was very compact. It was a tiny little thing. Almost, I don't know. Not boxy like the older Mustangs, the 60s. This was the 70s. And it was just an amazing car. Amazing. Oh yeah, I miss my car. Back to work, guys.
Now, after the mounting is completed, what happens next?
Well, once the slides are prepared, they're again laid out in numerical order, and I follow the process of looking at the question material first. I try to look to see what do I find at the crime scene, what do I find on items from the victims, and then I move to the accused or the suspect in the case, and then I look at the known standards in that order. Okay. I just want to see first what I have. In the slide preparation, normally the slide preparation goes question material first and then known, and that's to avoid having the knowns exposed.
So you deliberately separate by starting with the questioned hairs and fibers?
Well, you do everything you can to avoid any possible contamination. You're concerned about that. We know the risk that it's involved with contamination, so you take every effort possible to avoid that, so that what you're seeing is actually what was on the item.
And you did that in this case?
Every case is treated that way.
You see a photograph before you. I'd ask that it, Your Honor, be marked 462. This will be a series. Could I ask that it be 462A?
All right, 462.
And I think we already saw this marked as 461, but is this the exam? No, we didn't? This is new. Oh, this is new. Can you tell us what's shown in this photograph, sir?
Well, here the examiner is looking at the slide using the stereo microscope. It may be the first step for some examiners to examine that slide in that way. Low magnification. We start at about, it could be 10x and go up to maybe 40 or 50 times magnification.
Now, in this initial examination, you're looking for what?
Well, if you're looking at hairs, mainly racial characteristics can be distinguished. Length, color, shape, contour, appearance of the tip, appearance of the root. It's easier to see in that instance, perhaps, the apparent shape of the hair itself, the three-dimensional shape of the hair, because you're looking at it in 3 dimensions. But it's just a low magnification screening tool to look through the hairs, to identify which hairs that you may want to look at under higher magnification.
Okay. Is it at this point that you determine, is there such a thing as a hair not suitable for further analysis or comparison purposes?
Sure, there are hairs that aren't worth comparing.
And why would that happen?
Well, there are head hairs, pubic hairs, and some facial hairs are routinely the hairs that are compared microscopically. Hairs from the arm, from the leg, body hairs, for instance, from the trunk of the body, back hairs, eye hairs, eyebrows, eyelashes. These hairs are not routinely compared in forensic laboratories, nor are they compared by us routinely. It may be of some interest in some instances where someone may be hit with like a club hit in the face, and on the club you find eye hairs that are embedded in the club. Then that takes on a little more significance. But looking at debris found on clothing or from vacuum sweepings from a floor, they probably shouldn't play a very significant role in any hair identification.
So what is it that causes you to determine whether a hair is or is not suitable for comparison purposes?
Well, if they fall into the categories of the types of hairs worth comparing, It's just experience and the hair itself. You look at the hair, you determine from experience if it's worth comparing. There's enough of the hair to work with, and if it's, again, from that region. And sometimes some hairs are very distinctive. You might not need a whole lot of hair to make a comparison.
So you're looking to have a sufficient quantity of distinctive characteristics?
Well, there's no set number of characteristics that are needed to make a comparison. That's up to the examiner and the experience of the examiner, and how many hairs they've seen, what types of hairs they've seen, what is unusual, what is usual. And based on all that, the decision is made to determine to whether or not to compare it with a known standard.
Now, the next slide, next photograph that's on the screen now, 462B. Can you tell us what's being depicted in that photograph?
Well, that's just a close-up view of the slide. It's difficult to see, perhaps, but the slide on the stage of the stereo binocular microscope.
And 462C, can you tell us what do we see in this photograph?
Well, here the examiner is sitting at the comparison microscope, and that's really one of the main tools of the unit. And that's the tool that is used to take a question piece of material, like a hair or a fiber, and compare it in the same field of view with a known material. For instance, if a hair were recovered from a weapon or from an item, it would be mounted on a glass microscope slide. Now, that instrument, there are two microscopes there. One microscope would be used for the question slide. The other microscope would be used for the slide containing the known hairs from the individual. And by looking through the eyepieces, which he's doing here, those eyepieces will allow you to see both of the hairs at the same time. The same type of comparison is done with fibers. You're comparing question material, known material, in the same field of view. More people are familiar with comparing bullets. I mean, I grew up and that's all I ever saw on TV shows was comparing scratch marks on bullets to see if this bullet came from this gun. And they'd line up the striations and you could see them. The difference here is that the material that we're looking at, we're looking actually through it. We're looking inside of it to look at the characteristics because we're using transmitted light and not reflected light.
Now, do you count the number of characteristics that you find in hair samples?
I don't, no.
And why is that?
Well, I don't necessarily think there's a minimum number of characteristics that one needs for making an identification. You look at everything. You look at all the characteristics that you see. And based upon all of these things that you're looking at, an opinion is reached based on that. Not on how many notes you take, not on how many points that you write down in your notes. It's actually based on what you're seeing.
So what component does experience, the number of hairs that you've compared and looked at in your tenure as an examiner, what component does experience in that play in all this?
Well, a good hair examiner has a lot of scope time, has a lot of time looking at hairs. The more things you see, the more value judgments you can make regarding what something is worth. We do this every day ourselves in our own everyday experiences, and I just do it from a microscopic standpoint. We value things all the time, and I place value or importance on certain characteristics that I see under the microscope. So the more time you have, the more decisions you can make that are of value. But still, people that come through the training after a year are still going to be seeing a lot more hairs than what many people would ever look at. And within several years, they have a pretty broad base. But I've seen, obviously, a lot more.
Now, as you examine, you talked about notes, sir. As you examine the slides, are you taking notes about what you see?
I take notes on, again, the question items first. I look to determine if there are hairs present, the type of hair, animal, human, race, body area, the condition of the root, approximate length of the hair, if the hair had any treatment. I may indicate if it's not suitable for comparison or suitable for comparison. And I just move through the material that way, from item to item, until I get to the knowns. The known hair slides are examined more carefully at this point because I want to make sure I have a good idea in my mind of the characteristics of this individual. I then can go to the comparison scope and make the comparison. It doesn't take the comparison scope initially. Once you get through to the question material, you have a pretty good idea what the hairs of this person look like, or what the hairs of this person look like, because they're on their own clothes. When you get to the known hairs, you look at the characteristics and the lights go on. I've seen that hair before. I've seen those hairs before. And you just go back through the question material and compare them side by side.
And when you say side by side, you have a chart you're asking to be marked People's 463.
All right, 463.
Can you tell us, sir, what this chart shows us?
Well, it kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at through the through the comparison microscope. And essentially it looks like that first chart you saw with a line drawn down the center. And that's the dividing line between your two microscopes. The best possible match, the one you try to really get, is where you have a mirror image setup. That the hair on the left, which is the known hair, and the hair on the right, which is the question hair, if you looked at them together, they would appear to be one hair. And that's what you try to do when you're trying to determine if a question hair looks like the known hairs.
And that's the field of vision that you have, that circle with a line through it?
Right, well, you can see the hair kind of goes outside the circle, but the field of view is it's a circular field, a white background, and has a center hairline down the middle, which separates your two specimens or your two microscopes.
Now, is everyone's hair the same? For example, my hair, okay? I almost lost it. We have one hair. If I pull out this one hair over here, is it going to look the same as, say, a hair over here?
With your hair, they probably are going to be pretty close. But with
Commenting on something?
well,
All right.
with most people, there's pretty good range. I mean, there could be a range from you might have a dark hair, a coarser hair on one side, and you might have a finer hair on the other side. That's why we require that the coroner, whoever's collecting the hair samples from the individual, take pullings from different areas of the head as well as combings, because you got to have a couple things working here. You have hairs that are actively growing, and you have hairs that are ready to fall out, and they don't look the same. They look a little different. So I request that we get at least 25 to 30 pulled hairs, and then take combings as well, so that you can get a good idea as to the types of hairs that if they were pulled out, what they would look like, and if they fell out naturally, what they would look like. And use all of these hairs in forming an idea about the characteristics of the known hair.
Okay, so then, is there like a range of characteristics for each person's hair?
There is a range of characteristics, sure. And when I look at the individual hairs from a sample, I determine what the average hair is. You can do that. You can look at them and say, well, I see hairs that pretty much fall within a pretty narrow range, and you're going to have some hairs that are on the outsider edge of that range. But you include all of those into the characterization or the analysis or the storyline that you're writing on these known hairs. This range of characteristics, though, from my experience, is a much narrower range than what you see out in the population, out in other people.
Well, let me ask you to amplify that a little bit more, because if each of us has a range of characteristics, couldn't a hair from the back of my head match the hair from the front of another juror's head or Mr. Darden's? You know what I mean? If there's a range, then why? I shouldn't bring Mr. Darden into hair discussions. I won't do it anymore. You know what I mean? If we all have a range, then isn't there going to be an overlap? How can you say that any hair didn't come from someone else?
Well, as I said, there is a range with each person. Everybody has a range of characteristics. Some people have a broad range. Some people have a lot of hairs that look very similar to each other. It makes it a little bit easier if they're closer together than if they're far apart. But the overlapping aspects, that you might say that a hair that you find on one person's head, it may have some similarities to another person's hair. There may be some overlap, but it won't match. I mean, it may look somewhat similar, but it won't exhibit the same microscopic characteristics.
Strike that word match.
Yes. Jurors,
Sorry.
disregard the term match in this context. Thank you.
Can we replace that term with the same microscopic characteristics?
I meant to say that they won't exhibit the same microscopic characteristics. That is, they won't look the same.
Now, you mentioned, you know, if you looked at that my hairs would probably all look very similar. You're referring to color treatment, correct?
Well, I think the color treatment would be a big help, yes.
And you could see if someone had color treatment in their hair under the microscope.
Oh, very, very easily, yes.
But even if someone has color-treated hair, some kind of treatment with respect to the color, will you still see some kind of a range of characteristics?
Oh, you will, sure. And for instance, some of your hairs may be lighter than others, and they may not have as much pigment. They'll take on a much brighter color than a hair that is darker, that has absorbed the same amount of color. So you will see pigment granules, you'll see medulla, you'll see cuticle, scales, ovoid bodies. You see it all, unless it's so darkly dyed that they're covered up, and that's possible.
So when you mount a known hair standard from a given individual, for example, in this case, the defendant's known sample or Nicole's known sample, do you make any effort to assure that you represent the range of characteristics that you've seen in their sample on the slides?
That selection, yes, I do. That selection is made as you're taking hairs from the container, the original container, whether it's using a stereo microscope or using your own eyes to see length, thickness, color, and a range. Her hairs, for instance, appeared to have some highlighting or treatment to them. So and some hairs didn't appear to have too much. So it was just a matter of collecting hairs that exhibited all those characteristics.
So that you accurately represent the range of that person's hair?
Well, the first thing you do is you mount up what you think is a range, a good range, and then you go to your material. You may find a hair for instance, on an item of clothing from that person, and you see a lot of similarities with the knowns that you prepared, but maybe something that doesn't quite right. It looks a little.
I don't hate my hair. I don't need it. But if wigs were not so freaking expensive, if wigs were just cheaper a little bit, the ones that you can actually afford are just terrible. They're terrible wigs. But they have some fire wigs out there. I mean, fire. But they're so expensive. If they had affordable fire wigs, you would see me with a different hairdo every night. Sometimes I would be short and blonde. Sometimes I would be long and black. And my cord is stuck. It's whatever. It doesn't matter. But man, I wish. I mean, it just feels like by now we should be able to get wigs more cheaper. But we can't. I would have different colors every day. Every day. I don't know why. I have different color shirts. I have different color socks. Why can't I have different color wig every day?
A little different. You may have to go back and mount additional hairs from the known sample, just so that you can increase that range a little bit. You may see something that may not quite be present, and you want to clarify it. You may need to go back and mount more hairs. And once in a while in a case, it happens all the time, that I would call back out to the contributors or the police department and say, I don't think you gave me a good enough known standard, or I need hair combings. Can I have additional hairs so that I can make sure that what I'm seeing either looks like it or doesn't look like it? I want to make sure that before I reach a conclusion that it's a valid association or exclusion.
Now, during the examination of known standards in any case, do you make any effort to see that whether you can distinguish between the known standards? For example, in this case, you had the known standards of Ron Goldman and of Nicole Brown. Did you make any effort to determine whether you could tell them apart?
This is the first thing you have to do. When you're looking at known material, you want to make sure that the people you're going to be comparing the questionnaires to look different. If they look the same, conclusions or the strength of the association would be minimized. It could have come from either individual.
Well, has that ever happened?
Not in casework since I've been working. All the known samples that I've gotten over the years, and that there have been quite a few, I've never had a problem being able to distinguish the victims of a case and the suspects of the case, and multiple suspects. I've had cases where I've had 200 or 300 or 400 known hair samples as elimination or possible suspects to compare with question hairs found at a crime scene or on a body of a young child, a victim of a case. And it's a job. The one thing you have to do is make sure they all look different. And it's pretty easy to do.
And you've never had any trouble being able to distinguish between two different people's hair?
Samples are pretty easy to distinguish. You have some problems with identical twins. Identical twins can be real close, especially if they happen to live in the same environment and they share very many common things. Because environment and diet and how much sun they get, how they treat their hair, all of these things add the differences that are often seen between hairs that may be very close microscopically. A person may take maybe an alcoholic, for instance. We had a case one time where there were brothers. Their hairs looked very close, but one person had...
Okay, this is way beyond the question.
Sustained. Ask another question.
Sorry.
Well, let me ask you this. How many known hair samples have you examined in your...
I was
capacity?
interested in that, but I knew I wasn't going to get it.
Easily 10,000, easily.
In the course of that experience, sir, have you ever had occasion to examine the hairs of multiple family members?
I have.
And in that experience, were all the family members, say, of the same race?
They were.
Same hair color?
No.
How did you distinguish? They were the same. What were they? Were they siblings? Were they mother and father?
I don't think that's relevant to this case.
It's your hypothetical.
I mean, brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers.
Were you always able to distinguish between them?
Yes, you can distinguish between them. Sometimes you'll have family members that are pretty close. But for the most part, you can distinguish
Not
between
in my family.
siblings or family family members.
It was the hair that
because-
got me off.
That's what I was
The
gonna say.
characteristics.
When I got taken into the police station for burglarizing Walmart, it was the hair that got me free. Because, I mean, we were sisters. We looked similar. She had bangs. I don't have bangs, and I couldn't grow that hair out that fast if I did have bangs on the day of the burglary or robbery or theft. I don't know what you call it when it's Walmart. Like my hair was too long. That's the only thing that got me free that day, was my hair different than hers.
That I look at are not based solely on genetics. I mean, we know that even brothers and sisters, unless they're identical twins, I mean, they're different. I mean, they just look different. And their hairs also tend to look different as part of this unique thing that we have as a human being.
Well, apart from genetics, is there something about the way a person lives that will make their hair distinguishable from another person's hair?
Sure.
For example?
Well, a person that doesn't wash their hair very much may have dirt and debris and other material in the hair shaft, underneath the cuticle, or the scales of the cuticle. A person may pick up head lice, pubic lice. You can see those on the hair shaft. A person may have also a lot of damage to the hair. It's not a clean hair. It's subject to a lot of damage. This might be characteristic of the type of person that he is or she is.
So, for example, if you got the known standards from two family members whose hair color was the same and who are of the same race, would you be able to distinguish between them based on these other characteristics that you're describing?
Well, hair color and race are pretty broad categories. I mean, if you say brown Caucasian as an example, there's a lot of people with brown hair that are white.
Sir,
I mean, just an awful lot.
listen. All Marcia wants to know is if you can tell the difference between the two people if they're in the same family. That's all she's trying to get you to answer. Will you listen to her question and just answer her, please?
That's pretty broad categorization. There are other characteristics that you look for besides just color and racial characteristics, and that's where you see the differences.
Have you been able to distinguish between the hair of two brown-haired Caucasian people in the past?
You do it all the time, in cases that you get in, as well as the test that you prepare.
You were mentioning two brothers, one of which was alcoholic earlier. Does that show up in the hair?
Habits, alcohol abuse, drug abuse will affect hair characteristics. There may be characteristics found within the hair shaft that I've seen over the years that may be characteristic of that person's habits. And sometimes they may be the only characteristics that can be used if they're that close microscopically. But hairs are kind of the dumping ground, right? They're kind of the dumping ground of the body. I mean, we have...
Sustained. Ask another question.
Well, you say hairs are kind of the dumping ground. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Well, it's a structure that materials are excreted or secreted in so that they can leave the body. A person, as an example, a person has been poisoned, and this has been documented in a lot of cases with arsenic, that by looking at the hair, one can determine that arsenic is in fact present in the hair. If a person is a drug user,
Good to
drugs
know.
will be excreted or secreted into the hair shaft, and they can be tested that way. And it's a test that is more commonly being used for employment type matters, rather than invade the body with taking blood samples.
Non-responsive, irrelevant.
They take hair samples. So it's just it's a structure of the body that helps the body get rid of things.
Now, in this case, I believe you indicated that you initially got the known standards of the defendant, Ron Goldman, and Nicole Brown, correct?
I did.
And I believe you also testified you were able to distinguish each of their hairs from each other.
I was.
Did each of the individuals, for example, did Ron Goldman's hair display distinctive characteristics?
It did.
Did Nicole Brown's hair also display distinctive characteristics?
They did.
And also the defendant's hair?
They did.
Okay, with respect, I'll start with the defendant first. Did you find, with respect to those distinctive characteristics, at the FBI, do you maintain reference samples, photographs of hairs from people of various racial groups?
We do.
And for what purpose do you do that?
For training, primarily.
Did you bring one of those charts with you here?
I did prepare a chart, yes.
you see that? Right, thank you.
May this be marked People's 464, Your Honor?
People's 464.
Thank you. So, are these all photographs that you have at the FBI?
Well, no, I photographed them. Those were hairs of different black individuals, blacks from this country and from Africa.
Okay. So, tell us what you're trying to demonstrate with this chart.
Oh, these are hairs that were taken just at random from samples from individuals that were in the reference collection. There's one there from a bushman from Africa, one from a Somali warrior, a couple of them from individuals that work in the laboratory. I think you see there's a blue hair there, I believe, is one of them. That's a treatment. She's a clerk typist in the unit. I think there's another one that has a red coloration to it.
Yay! Pictures.
Again, I don't recall what type of treatment that was, mahogany rinse or something like that. But the other hairs just represent some randomness, some random variation that is exhibited between different individuals to show you that the hairs do differ microscopically.
Did you also prepare a chart of photographs of Caucasian hairs?
I did.
Is that the next one up, Dana? I'd ask that this chart be marked 465, Your Honor.
465.
Okay, before we move on to discuss this, let me ask you just a couple more questions. You indicated that the defendant's hair was distinctive.
I did.
And what was distinctive about it?
Well, it was very light colored. It had very light pigmentation, prominent one-sided pigmentation, which was prominent in many of the hairs in the sample. There's a number of other characteristics as well. I have them jotted down in my notes, but I felt that those hairs were very distinctive, easy to select.
All right, now you indicated that with respect to Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, you also found distinctive characteristics, and here we have the board 465. Can you tell us what you're showing us in these 16 different photographs?
Well, there's a couple things, I believe, in this chart, trying to show that there's a variation or randomness to the color, to the pigmentation, distribution, to medulation, or the medulla that you see running down. Some of the hairs have them, some don't. You may find it in a one person anyway. You may find hairs that don't have a medulla and others that do. Again, it's just to show some of the variation. The three pictures on the right I had to bring in. They're my daughter's hairs. On the right, second one, third one, and fourth one, starting from the oldest to the youngest.
Can you step down and show us which ones those are? 'Cause
Sure.
I couldn't tell. You want to use the pointer?
No.
Okay.
This is my 17-year-old's hair. This is my 13-year-old. She was a little upset because her hairs have some damage to it.
She didn't want them on TV?
She didn't want them on TV. And the youngest here has a darker hair of the three. Again, trying to show that there is some variation even within a family, that they will exhibit different characteristics.
Thank you. All right, so you indicated that you examined question hairs, and then you examine the knowns, and then you go to the comparison process?
That's right.
And you indicated to us the use of the comparison microscope. Let me ask you this. When you compare the question hairs to the question hairs that are recovered from evidence at a crime scene to the known hairs of an individual that were collected, what would you say if only one hair from the known standard exhibited the same microscopic characteristics as the questioned hair?
That's a tough one. It depends upon the hair, how many hairs were recovered, where it was recovered. It may have something to do with whether or not it might be reported. If a hair is on the outer edge of the range, a lot of times those are just thrown out. You don't consider them as a potential. And it's just logic, it's common sense. Here, what would you expect to see if this guy shed hairs at the crime scene? Well, he would lose hairs like most of his hairs. He wouldn't lose, maybe, isn't it just strange that he happened to lose one that looks kind of like one of the weird hairs in his head? I'd throw it out. I'd rather just throw it out and not involve him at all in that type of examination.
So you try to err on the side of being conservative in your conclusions?
Sustained.
In forming your conclusions, how do you have some kind of standard that you go by in terms of trying to benefit the suspect?
Well, it's objectivity, impartiality. You don't get involved with the case. You try to report out truthfully what you see based upon the observations you make, with no concern with the outcome. And it's normally a default mechanism built into it. If there's any question, you throw it out. You don't try to make a match. You either matches or, I say matches again, I'm sorry, it's...
You instruct the witness.
Yeah.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you were to disregard the term match in this context.
You either have the same microscopic characteristics.
You have to apologize because some of that comes out naturally, but yeah, if it exhibits the same microscopic characteristics, you call it that way. If there are some differences and you can't account for them, you throw it out.
No.
All right, so for example, well, strike that. We're talking about same microscopic characteristics and when you'll form a conclusion, but let me ask you this, sir. Can you say that a hair found at a crime scene, even though it exhibits the same microscopic characteristics as the hair taken from the suspect, even though you say that, can you say that it could only have come from this person and no other in the world?
No, we do not say with absolute certainty that a hair came from a particular person, no matter where the hair is found.
Are there databases that tell you what percentage of the population could have been the source of any particular question hair?
No.
And when you say that you don't say that, you don't say that a hair could only have come from one person and no other. Why is that?
Well, because you can see that in some individuals that there are hairs that they can look very similar to another individual. So that in that instance, just because it happens, you can't make a blanket statement and say that it's a positive form of identification. If it happens once, it happens twice, you cannot say absolutely, and we don't say that. Every report that we send out has a statement in it to that effect.
Now, is use of the microscope to perform the examinations considered to be the best method of comparing hairs in the forensic community at this time?
We think so, yes.
Is there any instrumental means of comparison currently recognized as reliable that have gained acceptance in the scientific community other than microscopic comparison?
There have been other techniques, other instrumental methods that have been used, none considered to be useful to individualize hairs.
Sorry, are you going to use 465 any longer?
Not anymore. You want me to take that?
Yeah. Seem to be blocking juror number 7 again.
All right. Let's talk about fibers for a minute. Tell us what a fiber is.
Well, a fiber is the smallest piece
A
of
fiber.
fabric.
It has been since, what did they say? This trial started in, I think they said October, but they could have said December, November, September. Anyway, it's freaking June 29th right now. They really haven't figured out any way to fix juror number 7. They can't just move his chair over a little bit. They can't move the boards. They don't know where the boards go by now.
Essentially.
Are there different kinds of fibers?
There are naturally occurring fibers, such as from an animal. Woolen fibers is a good example. Cotton fibers that come from plants. So plants provide textile fibers. And also there are man-made fibers. And there's some others, but man-made and naturally occurring are the two main groups.
We have a chart here, Your Honor. It's on the screen. SAB marked People's 466.
People's 466.
Can you see the chart, sir? That's been marked as People's 466?
I can see it fine.
On your monitor? Okay.
Yes.
Tell us what is shown in this chart.
Well, in the upper right-hand portion of the chart, you see what is depicted as a cotton fiber. And it's probably the most common plant fiber that we wear. And cotton is used for a lot of other things besides wearing, but it's the most common plant fiber. It comes from a seed boll. It's a seed fiber. The fiber beneath it is a woolen fiber. It's an example of a wool fiber taken from a sheep. Woolen fibers can come from other types of animals as well. They don't have to come from sheep. It could come from a woolen fiber from a goat, would be a good example. Camel hair, another one. Cashmere goat is a good example. It's just an example of an animal fiber.
And is that how it appears microscopically?
Well, that's just an artist's depiction of it. Yes, it can. You can see the scales on the outermost portion of the hair. Woolen fibers are hairs, just animal hairs. They look differently microscopically. And some woolen fibers are very fine, not a lot of scale protrusion. They're comfortable to wear. That's what we like to wear. Those woolen fibers that are coarse, that are rough, you might be walking on them. They're not as expensive, so we walk on them. But you wouldn't want to wear them.
And then man-made?
Well, the man-made fiber, it might be a little difficult to pick out here. On the right, I mean upper left, you see what looks like a longitudinal view. If you looked at the fiber underneath the microscope, and the borders on the top and the bottom are the borders of the fiber. All right, and it's just cut off at the ends. It has in it a number of structures that may be found. Delustering particles may be added to the fiber to take away the shininess of it. It's just a pigment that's added to the fiber when it's produced. They may also have voids, or just large spaces with nothing in them, or they may have pigment in them. So they're just examples of what you might see in a man-made fiber.
Down below that, I see shape and cross-section.
Well, shape and cross-section are an identifying characteristic, especially of man-made fibers, because the industry designs and produces their fibers for specific end uses. The carpets that you walk on may have a much different shape and size, or they would, than the clothing that you wear on your body. You wouldn't be wearing a rug around, nor would you walk on lingerie. I mean, it's just not that way. There's a design and a purpose for each of the fibers that are produced, and certain fiber types have certain shapes, and that's depicted there.
So does this chart kind of explain to us what you can tell from the microscopic examination of fibers?
Well, that's kind of the first thing, right? That you can look at and see right off with a man-made fiber or a natural fiber.
Is that like your first determination?
Just like that first determination with hairs. Is it plant? Is it animal? Is it man-made?
How's hubby today? And mother-in-law, but how's hubby today?
Thanks, John. Your Honor, I have here a chart that's marked entitled Cotton Fibers. I'd ask it to be marked 467.
467.
Thank you. Tell us what this chart shows, sir. Would you like to step down and
It
point?
might be easier to see.
Sure. Is there a pointer? It's only a little. Please tell us about this chart.
What I've done here is try to give you an idea of what can happen to cotton fibers that you might wear or you may encounter. Cotton fibers, they're pretty common. We make 5 billion pounds of cotton fibers every year, just here in the United States. They go to a lot of different sources. And they go into clothing, draperies, upholstery. There's a lot of end uses for cotton. But the distinguishing features of cotton can be seen in the color, whereas a fiber that is uniformly colored would look different than a cotton fiber that had color at specific intervals or different portions of the fiber. The surface color that is seen in this particular cotton fiber would be characteristic of a printed fabric, where the color is added to the surface of the fabric after it's produced. Uniform color might be made or produced when the yarns are coming off, after the yarns have been spun and the whole yarn is dyed. And the degree of twist is something that's compared. This is a gray, a greige fiber, like a cotton ball. You may see this particular unfinished fiber in blue jeans. It's a good example. A fiber that is more finished, it's been through a little bit more processing, will take a little bit of the twist out. You might find that in a shirt or a blouse. Mercerized cotton has been treated differently. You find mercerized cotton in threads. It doesn't have very much of these what are called convolutions or twists, back and forth twists that is commonly found in cotton fibers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Escobar. This is a chart I'd ask to be marked People's 468.
Right, so marked.
Can you tell us, first of all, you told us about the cotton fibers. Now, is this chart about man-made fibers?
Right, it's a little bit of education on how man-made fibers are produced.
Can you explain to us, starting wherever you want? I see the one at the title up to the upper left is cellulosic. What does that mean?
Well, cellulosic refers to the origin, that is, wood pulp, cotton linters, something that has cellulose or material. It's natural as a substrate, as a base material. It's a starting material that you work with.
So cellulosic would mean a natural substance for the starting material?
Right. Some of the first fibers, the man-made fibers that were produced, were cellulosic in nature. That is, they started with something that was naturally occurring. They put some chemicals together, and they extruded it into a fiber shape.
Extruded?
Well, if I can step down, I'll point
Please.
that out. Thank you. Okay. When man-made fibers are produced, they have to start with some beginning substance. Some start with a cellulose-based substance. Others start with other chemicals and perhaps even like a plastic chip. They melt the chip and then they make fibers out of it. But from this beginning solution, it is forced under pressure out of what's called spinneret. It looks like a shower head. And the shape of each one of these little holes and the processing itself has something to do with this cross-section that you see, the shape of the fiber that comes out of it. Dry spinning, it's forced out in air. Rayon, which is the cellulosic, acetate, and triacetates take on these particular shapes. And as they dry, they crimp. And it looks like you have a striated or streaky fiber as it's laying on a glass microscope slide. With non-cellulosics, we see that nylon, polyester, acrylic, monacrylic, olefin would be like polypropylene, polyethylene, substance with maybe either melt spun or wet spun. It may be extruded or pushed out of this spinneret into a liquid bath, or it may be again into air. Olefins. They're the types that end up on carpets and many of the fabrics that we wear. You can really control the shapes. And the shapes have a lot to do with how long they last, where they're intended to go, what's going to happen to this fiber, how it's going to feel if you wear it. These are just examples of some of them. Some of these don't even make anymore. Some are still in production. This particular fiber, as an example, it looks like a dice. You look at it under the cross-section of it. It has 4 holes that run right down the center of it. And the purpose, I'm not sure. Maybe to make it lighter. I don't know. But cost and end use, a lot of these things are included into the factors that make up the fiber that you see. This one has 5 holes running down it. This is called a trilobal fiber. It has 3 lobes. This trilobal fiber, this particular one, has a hole down the center of it. It's quite unusual. These particular trilobal fibers have different shapes and sizes of the lobes, an identifying characteristic of that particular fiber or fabric that you're comparing. Acrylic fibers may end up bean-shaped. This particular fiber here is irregular or round. It looks like it has about 6 lobes. The bottom portion of the chart gives you an example here. It has something to do with why I'm here. And that is the types of fabrics that end up on individuals involved in crime. Yarn types could be 2 types in particular, a staple yarn and a filament yarn. Staple yarns are made up of a lot of small fibers that are spun together.
Oh my gosh, Tino, how old is he?
Because there's a lot of loose little fibers. Whereas a filament yarn, like in a nylon jacket, long filaments of indeterminate length. They
That's
would have
just
to be damaged.
not fair.
Shed. You don't shed that easily.
T, that's not
These
fair.
into a fabric, whether it's a knitted fabric, or a woven fabric, or a bonded fabric, and there's several different types. Most types that you encounter would be knitted fabrics and woven fabrics.
Is there a difference in the shedding properties of fabrics that are of a staple or filament type?
There is a difference. Yeah, staple fibers, staple yarns, and staple fabrics tend to shed more. And also they tend to hang on to things more
They're tacky.
by their nature. Just the surface characteristics of the fabric or such. The more worn the fabric, for instance, you may wear away a lot of the loose fiber ends that are present. This particular fabric would
How is he feeling right now?
Whereas a new fabric that has a lot of loose yarn still, on the fabric may hang onto something and keep the fibers longer. There's a bulky sweater. That bulky sweater will shed, and it picks up a lot of stuff just by its nature.
As opposed to the filament.
But it feels good and it
Filament
keeps you
fabrics,
warm.
You may find a filament fabric that is in a very slick fabric. A nylon jacket would be a good example. You may find filament fibers in lingerie. Any type of slick fabric that is made up of this particular type of yarn wouldn't shed very easily. It wouldn't hold on to things very easily. It's something to consider when you're looking at evidence. Kind of expect to see certain things based on the fabric that you're handling.
You know, you saw Nicole Brown's, the dress that she was worn on June the 12th, that she was found in. Do you examine that fabric, a known portion of that dress?
I did.
Could you tell us whether that was a staple or a filament type of fabric?
I don't recall on that. It may have been filament. I'm not sure on that, though.
Okay, we'll get back to that. All right, you indicated earlier that you can examine fibers, and you talked about the mounting. Is the mounting process for fibers the same as the mounting process for hairs? On slides, that is?
It's pretty much the same techniques, same mounting materials, precautions. Probably take a little more precaution with fibers because of their nature.
Their nature being?
Well, they're smaller, and you can lose them if you're not careful. They tend to float around a little bit more.
But other than that?
Same, everything else is the same starting point.
And with respect to the examination process, how do you conduct a fiber exam?
Well, the exam is conducted in a similar way in the beginning as with hairs. That is, you look at it with a stereo microscope, look at it with a research microscope. You may compare it with a comparison microscope to see if the question material found on the victim's clothes looks like the fibers from the fabric of the suspect in the case. And then once the determination is made that they either look the same, or if they look the same, then you go to the next step. And there are several steps beyond that which help to confirm this eyeball association that you're making.
Well, let's assume for a moment that you have compared a question fiber from the crime scene, say a fiber on a victim's shirt, to clothing that the perpetrator was wearing when he was arrested. And let's say that you determine that they exhibit the same microscopic characteristics. Is that where you stop?
No, you go on. There are other confirming tests.
Are they the same with respect to whether the fibers are man-made or natural fibers?
No, they'll differ. Man-made fibers can use additional tests for confirming.
Okay, let's start with the natural fibers, naturally occurring ones. Let me just back up and ask you this. You said there are additional steps that can be taken or tests that can be done on man-made fibers?
There are.
So in other words, would it be fair to say that you can do a certain number of tests beyond the
Oh,
microscopic
they will.
examination on man-made fibers
They
and
will, John.
natural fibers?
Give it
and
a
then
little bit.
You can do more than that if they're man-made. You know what I mean?
Sustain.
It would be much better not to lead, because let me just ask you, if you have whether the fibers are man-made or natural, after the microscopic comparison reveals the same or similar characteristics, what steps do you take with respect to man-made or natural?
Almost all of the steps beyond that point are still microscopic, but there are different instruments, different types of microscopes that can be used to confirm an identification of the fiber type and also to compare certain properties of the fiber. You might, as an example, a polarizing microscope might be the second step after a comparison is made. A polarizing microscope is one that is designed specifically to allow you to look at polarized light and how it affects the synthetic fiber that you're looking at. And a polarizing microscope it's not too simple, but it's simple to understand when you think in terms of sunglasses. If you have polarizing sunglasses, you know how when you wear them, they tend to cut the glare. They do this because they're designed to let light only enter your eye in one direction. That the light coming and scattering in all directions hits your eye. It's like Venetian blinds. It only lets the light come through in one direction. You put a polarizer on the light source of a microscope, and you can control which direction you let the light hit the fiber with. By placing another polarizer above it, which is called an analyzer, which is essentially the same thing, it's a polarizing filter, and by adjusting the orientation of these, you can actually cross them so that no light comes through. But when you insert that fiber in between, the fiber interferes with that light, and you'll see color, and it's called interference colors. And by examining the interference colors and by doing some measurements with other instruments that can be added to it, you can identify the generic group of the fibers, as is a nylon fiber or it's a polyester fiber. These can be done with that instrument. And you can compare. You can do comparisons of interference colors with question and known.
If, for example, you have natural fibers, After you do the microscopic comparison, the straight microscopic comparison, what would be the next thing that you might do to compare questioned and known natural fibers?
Well, once a determination is made, as an example of a, let's say, a cotton fiber, looks the same under the comparison microscope. Next step would be to take it to what's called a microspectrophotometer. It's a big word. I don't know if we have a picture of that.
We do. People's 467? 9. 469, Your Honor?
469.
That's a big word he said.
Is that a microspectrophotometer?
It certainly is.
And tell us what it does.
Well, the microspectrophotometer it's like a regular microscope that has a photometer head. It has a reader that sits on the top of it. As an example here, you can see I'm looking through the microscope. Above that white area, just above it, is measuring the light that's passing through the fiber. And it can measure light at specific wavelengths. So that if the color that's added to the cotton fiber, it comes, let's say maybe 3 different colors are added to the fiber to give it the color that you see normally in daylight. That this instrument can show that these different components will interact with the light at specific wavelengths. And it'll present you with an absorption chart, which shows where the colors are and where they're absorbing. Our eyes see one color. The instrument actually allows you to see where these components are in the visible spectrum.
And the chart you're referring to, is that actually shown on the screen of the monitor in this photograph?
It's hard to see, but yes, that's the what you get from looking at the fiber.
Okay. Now we're showing you a chart. I'd ask that it be marked People's 469A, Your Honor.
469A.
Tell us what that is, sir.
Well, this chart here it shows you 2 brown carpet fibers that were examined under the same conditions. The chart that was prepared of one differs from the other. It's because they're different brown colors, just to show you when they don't look the same.
And is that an example of a chart that would be produced by the microspectrophotometer?
That is, yes.
Have you ever heard of the term a spectral fingerprint?
Well, I've heard that before, yes. It's essentially the spectral fingerprint or representation of the colors that go into the fiber, the dye components.
So when they say spectral, they mean?
Well, to the color range that we're familiar with. Fingerprint in the sense that it identifies the components of a particular fiber by the color components.
Fingerprint, Your Honor.
Okay, could we go back to that second chart? Mr. Dietrich, what would you say about the results on this chart with respect to whether or not the blue cotton fibers match?
Use the word match.
Sustained.
Okay. With respect to whether or not, with respect to the results on this chart, can you tell us whether or not you would draw the conclusion based on these results that these fibers had the same origin?
The chart that you see indicates that the colors are different. That in fact, the one fiber, if the question is, did the one fiber come from the same source based on this spectral result? They did not.
And you were looking then at the actual wave pattern, is that correct?
You look at the absorption peaks, absorption and transmission of that particular color in specific wavelengths.
Okay, and that second one, can it be marked 469B, Your Honor?
Yes.
For blue cotton.
Anybody want to stand up and take a stretch while we're at this point?
Yeah, Judge, you are perfect timing today.
I'm going to stand and take a
Dead on. It's 2 hours in. It's time to stop this madness. Look at his face. Oh, man. Guys, thank you so much for coming out today. I really, 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 really appreciate it. I shall see you all again really, really soon. I hope you guys have a great day. If you don't have a great day, come into Discord and talk. Just come into Discord and we will turn it into a great day. All right? Bye, guys.